als doch kam vor dem Atem, so drehen die Kühe an, auf Land. Die Füße sind wie wir fahren weiter, weiter. In der Tiefe des Raums klinken die Bewegungsfelder. Des Raums klinken die Bewegungsfelder. Der Tiefe des Raums klinken die Bewegungsfelder. Der Tiefe des Raums klinken. In der Tiefe des Bewegungsfelder. Des Raums klinken die.
Buonasera, abbiamo appena finito il concerto con Uta Buchheister e Martin, la pronuncia? Schneuing. Ok, è stato un bel concerto, abbiamo avuto un pieno di pubblico e abbiamo finito un concerto che si chiama appunto Liszt und Schokolade aus Berlin. Questo titolo pieno di suggestione ha un legame, diciamo, con il programma che hanno presentato questa sera. Infatti è un programma che porta da Liszt alla contemporaneità attraverso autori che hanno una cosa in comune. In English, for you, I said that this program that you presented this evening was, the title was Liszt und Schokolade, and because you presented the program that goes from the tradition Liszt to some composers, contemporary composers, that has something they come from Berlin. So, do you want to present your program and the composer that you made?
Yes, so we chose 6 pieces by Liszt, because it's his anniversary, mostly. I'm not sure I would otherwise have chosen this combination necessarily.
6 pezzi di Liszt che sono stati eseguiti.
Yeah. Yes, we chose 3 settings by Heinrich Heine and 3 by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe.
Dei testi di Heine e di Goethe.
2 of our major authors and known as ambassadors of German literature all over the world. So this is the texts we chose were also quite well known. They are part of the literary canon in Germany.
Certo, sono dei testi molto famosi in Germania, fanno parte della letteratura tedesca.
And then we formed a contrast with contemporary music. The pieces in which I took part, of course, were also settings of literature, contemporary literature.
What's the link between Liszt and the contemporary?
The invitation, the course invitation. They wanted Liszt and contemporary.
Also,
I'm just trying to think of it.
Yes,
of course. Liszt once was contemporary, and for us as a duo, we try to incorporate this into many of our projects. We always try to set side by side the classical romantic lead and modern song, because we find from our experience that listening to Liszt or Schubert and then listening to contemporary music opens people's ears, makes them more respondent and more tolerant. They start to realize that in terms of chamber music, in terms of musicianship, working together, piano and voice, it's not such a big difference.
Certo.
Listen, there is a tradition and there is a break in the tradition, and we want to show both. The modern music also uses very good lyrics from these days, like Liszt uses very good lyrics from his days. But today the composers make something else with the text. They don't make a classic lead. They split the words, they change the word, they make something different with the text, and it's interesting to see what for 100 years or for 100 years what the composers did with the words and what the composers today did.
Sì, quindi c'è stato un repertorio che era in parte legato alla tradizione, in parte contemporaneo e interessava appunto mostrare quello che è stato il passaggio tra un tipo di repertorio e l'altro, un repertorio più legato alla tradizione, un repertorio legato alla contemporaneità con l'uso del testo completamente diverso. The use of the text in the contemporary chamber music is completely different.
Not
so much.
It's much more versatile, of course, today.
There was an interesting piece that sorry, I don't remember the name of the composer, but you write the score in the sand. Do you want to speak about it?
Yes, that's the piece by Martin Daske,
Daske, yeah.
I believe he's written similar pieces also for instruments. And in this case he took a poem, a longish poem by Renata Halbach, and had it printed on shards of plastic of different forms, also printed differently. Sometimes the letters are smaller, bigger, further apart. So that is one dimension. You have these shards you have to think about, and then I'm arranging it in this box of sand. Sand from Sardinia. Very important from Sardinia now.
It was philological.
Yes. Oh yes, and we had to bring it all the way through the airport and everything.
You get also an holiday, or you get there only for the sand?
Only, he brought it from his holidays. Yeah. At first I was skeptical about this piece, because I thought, well, this is not a composition in the usual sense. Normally I spend weeks and weeks learning difficult scores. This time I thought, well, this is easy. I'll just throw it all in there and then make something of it. But he has, for each movement has a title, which wasn't given today, like Dreamlike, or Remembering Tomorrow, or Like an Angel, flapping your wings, things like that. Also he says exactly what dynamics he wants, so what's supposed to happen in the piece. And then, so I had to think of a pattern in which to put it, to accommodate all these informations. And then the shards themselves have a lot of information, because they're shaped differently and the text is printed differently. So it was, in the end, it's a challenge. It's ongoing. I know before how I'm going to arrange the pieces, but I don't know which ones. So the piece is completely different each time. And that's, of course, it's a very contemporary, postmodern way of treating poetry in music.
Sì, questo pezzo che stavo presentato, che la partitura è infatti una scatola di sabbia dalla Sardegna, e questi pezzi di plastica venivano posti nella sabbia. You put with an intention the position of the plastic, so you make like a draw, facevi una specie di disegno. L'autore ha dato un testo, il compositore ha dato un testo e un pattern da utilizzare per l'interpretazione di questi segni, che venivano variati appunto vocalmente con la voce. Bene, sono stati presentati anche molti altri pezzi di autori contemporanei, per esempio abbiamo avuto l'ultimo pezzo sulla Schokolade. The title was
Schokolade versüßt heute nicht. Chocolate doesn't sweeten.
La cioccolata non mi piace.
No, but it's not as sweet as it used to be. She goes on about putting pepper in the chocolate, and it's a collage. The text is, in this case, this is the exception, because the text is also by the composer, by Susanne Stelzenbach, and she's taken fragments, I think, partly quotes from the media, from some of this, especially the ending, reminds me of social media nowadays, although the piece is a few years old, but this is just like Facebook. I have to make a message straight away. I've thought of something, I have to call all my friends, things like that.
It's a postmodern work.
Yeah, it is.
There is a component of Alia, is right? Alia, I don't know in German, is...
Aleatorik, yes.
Aleatorik.
Well, don't know. The way she not in the music, the way she arranged the text, but it's a complete score. Everything's fixed. So,
quindi tutte le altezze notate, completamente in maniera anche molto chiara dalla partitura che stiamo guardando, però la scelta del testo,
when I'm giving
i movimenti,
for the letters, pause, pause. So it's slightly cabaretistic. I really enjoy doing this piece because people laugh, which doesn't happen so often in contemporary music.
Bene, ringraziamo Uta Buchheister e Martin. Quali saranno i vostri prossimi appuntamenti? Quali i vostri progetti nel futuro? Your projects in the future?
The next is make with 10 Berlin composers. The second part of a project, Berlin literature and Berlin composers. The first part Uta did with me before a few weeks, and in the next 2 weeks the next part will happen. Then I'm working at a high school, and so we make a project with some
music college, not high school.
Music college, okay. With some Italian composers, with Fabrizio Bacci, for example, and Bacci, it's alright. Bacci or Bacci. And then in January the next things. I think all 2 weeks there is something happening. I don't know really what. I don't want to know it, or I have to study it.
So we collaborate on contemporary music, and apart from that, I also do musical theatre and more classical stuff.
Bene.
I try to be as broad as possible.
So, bocca al lupo, e diamo appuntamento ai nostri spettatori alla prossima occasione con musica in posto. Arrivederci.